The first time she said it, I thought she was joking. We were standing on a quiet tennis court under the warm glow of the late afternoon sun. I had just tossed her a ball and shown her how to stretch before a serve. She bent slightly, smiled at me, and said in a playful voice, "Don't worry. I'm more flexible than I look." Something about the way she said it made me pause. It wasn't flirtatious exactly. It was confident, almost mysterious. And I had no idea that one simple sentence would lead to a moment that would completely change the way I understood kindness. Before we dive into this story, if you enjoy heartfelt stories about kindness and real human moments, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Here on your channel name, we believe even the smallest acts of kindness can change lives. Now let me tell you what happened that day. It started on a quiet Saturday morning. I work part-time at a small community tennis center just outside town. It's not fancy. The courts have cracks in them, the benches are old, and the nets have been replaced more times than I can count. But people love the place. Kids come after school, couples practice on weekends, and sometimes older players show up just to hit a few balls and talk about the old days. I mostly teach beginners. Some people take lessons because they want to get good. Others take them because they just want something new in their life. That morning, I was told a new student had signed up for a private lesson. When she walked onto the court, she didn't look like someone who had ever held a tennis racket. She wore a simple red dress and sneakers, her dark hair tied loosely behind her head. She looked around the court with curious eyes, like someone visiting a place she had only imagined before. "Hi," she said with a warm smile. "You must be my coach." "Coach might be a strong word," I laughed. "But yeah, I'm Jake. I'm Elena." She picked up the racket carefully, like it was something fragile. "I should warn you," she said, "I've never played tennis before." "That's okay," I told her. "Everyone starts somewhere." And we did. The first 10 minutes were exactly what you'd expect from a beginner lesson. I showed her how to hold the racket. She held it backwards. I showed her how to stand. She kept switching her feet. When I tossed her the ball, she swung too early. Then too late. Then she completely missed it and burst out laughing. But she wasn't embarrassed. She laughed easily, the kind of laugh that makes other people relax. "Okay," she said, catching her breath. "This might be harder than it looks." "That's tennis," I said. "Simple game. Hard sport." We kept practicing. Little by little, she started getting the hang of it. Her first successful hit made her clap like a little kid who had just learned something amazing. "Yes," she shouted. I couldn't help smiling. People like Elena remind you why teaching can be fun. Then came the stretching part. Before serving, I always show beginners a few simple stretches to avoid injuries. I bent forward to touch my toes. "Like this," I said. She watched carefully. Then she tried it. That's when she smiled and said the line. "Don't worry. I'm more flexible than I look." I chuckled. "All right," I said. "Let's see it." She slowly leaned forward. Then something surprising happened. She stretched deeper than I expected. Way deeper. Her palms touched the ground effortlessly. Then she straightened up like it was nothing. I blinked. "Okay," I admitted. "That's actually impressive." She grinned. "Told you." But that wasn't the surprising part. The surprising part came later. After about 40 minutes of practice, Elena suddenly sat down on the bench. "Everything okay?" I asked. She nodded. "Just catching my breath." But something felt different. She wasn't tired in the normal way beginners get tired. She looked thoughtful. After a moment, she said something quietly. "Jake, can I ask you something?" "Sure." Why do you teach beginners? I shrugged. I like helping people learn something new. That's it? Pretty much. She looked down at the racket in her hands. Most people don't have the patience for beginners, she said. I laughed softly. You should see my Tuesday class. Patience gets tested a lot. But Elena didn't laugh. Instead she said something that stuck with me. Kind people are rare. That sentence felt heavier than it should have. I sat down on the bench beside her. Why do you say that? She hesitated. Then she told me something I didn't expect. Last year, she said quietly, I was in a bad accident. My stomach tightened. A car accident? She nodded. For months I couldn't walk properly. I looked at her legs. You seem fine now. She smiled softly. That's because I worked very hard. Then she said something that made the earlier moments suddenly make sense. Flexibility used to be my life. I frowned. What do you mean? I was a dancer. Suddenly everything clicked. The posture. The balance. The way she moved. Professional? I asked. She nodded again. For almost 10 years. I whistled quietly. That's incredible. It was, she said. There was a long pause. After the accident, she continued, the doctor said I might never dance again. The words hung in the air between us. I didn't know what to say. She looked out across the empty court. So I started trying new things, she said. Like tennis? She smiled faintly. Yes. I leaned back on the bench. That's brave. She shook her head. No, brave would be going back to dancing. I thought about that for a moment. Then I said something simple. Maybe tennis is just the first step. She looked at me. You think so? Absolutely. Why? Because you showed up. She tilted her head. What do you mean? People who give up don't sign up for new things, I said. They stay home. They stop trying. But you didn't. For the first time since she told me about the accident, her eyes looked a little brighter. Kindness, she said slowly, sometimes sounds like encouragement. I smiled. Well, you're doing great so far. She stood up. All right, coach, she said, spinning the racket in her hand. Let's keep going. We practiced for another 20 minutes. Her shots weren't perfect. But they were getting better. More importantly, she looked happy. Really happy. When the lesson ended, she packed her bag and turned to me. Jake? Yeah. Thank you. For the lesson? For being patient. I shrugged. That's my job. She shook her head. No, she said gently. It's your character. Then she added something I'll never forget. You treated me like a beginner, not like someone who was broken. I felt a lump in my throat. Well, I said quietly, you're definitely not broken. She smiled. I hope you're right. As she walked toward the parking lot, she suddenly turned back. Oh, she called out. One more thing. What's that? She bent down and stretched again, effortlessly touching the ground. Then she laughed. Still more flexible than I look. I laughed too. But what stayed with me wasn't the stretch. It was the lesson behind it. Sometimes kindness isn't a grand gesture. It's patience. It's encouragement. It's treating someone like they're capable when the world has been telling them they're not. A few weeks later, Elena came back. And then again. And again. Her tennis improved. But something else improved too. Her confidence. One day she told me something incredible. I started dancing again, she said. Not professionally. Not on big stages. But in a small studio with a few friends. And she said something beautiful. Turns out, she told me with a smile, I'm more flexible than I thought. That's the thing about kindness. You never know how far it travels. A kind word. A little patience. A moment of encouragement. It might seem small to you. But to someone else, it might be the first step toward believing in themselves again. So if there's one thing I hope you take from this story, it's this. Be patient with people. Be kind to beginners. Encourage someone who's trying again after life knocked them down. Because sometimes the people who look the most ordinary are actually stronger and more flexible than they seem. And your kindness might be the reason they stand up again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who believes in kindness. And remember, the smallest act of kindness can stretch farther than you ever imagine.